All right. I think I did that right. So, everybody knows Dr. Seuss's full name, right? Do we? Theodore Geisel. His Seuss came from his mother's maiden name, and it actually in German is to be rhymed with Royce, so it's actually Seuss. And I'm sure all you folks who speak German already knew that, but it is Dr. Seuss if you were pronouncing it in the German way. Apparently, being German, the Seuss family or the Gazelle family, excuse me, were Lutherans, but but Ted was more attracted to the Episcopal Church because of the liturgy, and probably a little less of the staunch guilt that comes in Lutheran theology, certainly the Lutheran theology of the 40s, and really was attracted to the Episcopal Church. His father was a brewer, and Prohibition basically ruined his family business, and they fell on some hard times. He went to Dartmouth for college, and Wills provided some really fascinating. It's like he's reading his transcript from college and his disciplinary report. He was a little bit of a wild student, but he also was an editor for the magazine, the humor magazine at Dartmouth, Jack-o'-lantern, and submitted a lot of satire through that publication. He also submitted illustrations, and he'd gotten in trouble, and so he changed his name to T. Seuss, so that the dean would not know that was him writing or provide the illustrations for the publication, the Jack-o'-lantern at Dartmouth. And so that's how he began to have this pseudonym to mask his identity. We think he wrote that How the Grinch Stole Christmas somewhere in the late 1956, maybe around 1957, but that was when it was published, and late in the year, November 24th of 1957. And he did not necessarily write it to be a religious book. In fact, one can say he kind of intentionally avoided that. He did write it to be a satire, to be a critique on Christmas, and how we spend Christmas. And I think through his satire and the wisdom of that, you can see that underlying that, whether he intended to or not, is a pretty profound, what I would call religious theme, something that we use in religious language, whether he was comfortable using it or not. This is a great statistic for you guys who are history buffs. Initially, he had trouble selling the rights to it, but CBS paid $315,000 for a 2-year broadcast rights for the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which was more than CBS paid for the Oscar-winning 2.5-hour Bridge over the River Kwai. So it was more expensive than an Oscar movie. I think, based on some additional stuff I read, he really struggled with his identity as a German, but as a Christian German, he received a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric. He struggled with the authority of the government because it had shut down his father's livelihood and their family. It affected them so negatively and adversely. He had his own struggles in his family. They had no children. His wife suffered from Guillain-Barré syndrome and was eventually bedbound. And he had a relationship with another woman, and there was a lot of criticism about that. But I think what he is able to capture in his books is, we consider them children's books, but if you actually look at them and read them, For example, the Lorax. The Lorax is an environmental stewardship book before there is such thing as environmental stewardship or care of creation. It's a phenomenal book. It is a critique of how we treat the earth, how we treat creation. But it's a kid's book. It's written as a kid's book. So it's wonderful to find themes within his works that I think apply to us. So I want to have fun with this. It doesn't have to be as heavy-handed as last week got really heavy. So I want us to go around. I want us to share our favorite part, our favorite character, favorite line of the Grinch. And you guys probably are not on the screen in the same order you're on my screen, but I have Will Hill Tankersley first in the first block. So I'm going to let him start, and then we'll just go around and share what's most meaningful, what's most fun, what's most enjoyable to us.
Well, sure. I mean, it's hard to get away from the fact that Grinch is a horrible guy. So the moment when he got the idea to steal Christmas, that he got a wonderful, horrible idea, is my favorite line in the show. And in part, it's because the classic definition of a villain is somebody who's the hero of their own story. And throughout this, throughout the story, the televised story, the one that Boris Karloff narrated, he's so locked in his own context that he doesn't really understand the effect he's having on others. And it's this last blinding insight that changes things. But to me, the pinnacle of his villainy is when he says he had this wonderful, horrible idea.
Perfect. Mary Helen?
Yeah, it's hard to pick out one because they were all pretty good. I love the little girl being sucked up to the Grinch's home, and then when she got spit back out, I think that would have been fun. I don't know that there's any real significance to it, but I just thought it was fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. Ann and Reggie?
I like the dog. I thought he was a conscience to the Grinch throughout the situation, and it just goes back to show you that a good old dog is your best friend, even when you're a bastard. I mean, he's just wonderful.
The dog in the Benedict Cumberbatch version is absolutely hysterical.
I think the father standing up for the daughter at the end was good, but I'm not sure I would have gotten that far if we didn't have to watch it.
Katie?
Oh, I just love the whole thing. I love the Grinch. I loved his manners. I just love the color. I love his dance. I love his face. And I guess if I had to say something that stood out was when he said, you know, why am I changing? And when he was talking to the little girl, and he said, is it the twinkle in your eye? Or is it because you're a nonconformist? I love those lines. And I think the whole story was about that. It's about the twinkle and the nonconformity. And what do we do with that? How do we handle that? And I had to go to Costco today, and I thought, oh my God, I'm in Whoville. You know, you saw it. It's not the same clothes and the same hairdos, but I was in Whoville.
Emily?
Sorry, I'm keeping it muted because the children are running around. We actually just watched this about 10 minutes ago, just finished the very, very new one. I don't know if y'all have seen the new one, but at the very end, after he brings back Christmas and feels so bad about it, they invite him in and he sits down at dinner and he's just part of the family. And that just makes me smile.
Radney?
I love it when the town comes out after he's ripped off all of their Christmas cheer and goodies, and they sing that song. Makes me cry every time I hear it. You know, the va-hu-do, or how you say it. I just love the collective townspeople. I think that embodies the spirit of Christmas, and that you don't need, you know, packages, boxes, and bags to have Christmas. And it really upset him that and that's what got him, on the road to the heart, becoming 3 sizes larger.
Perfect. Jimmy?
I have not seen the movie in quite a while, but I remember it well. I haven't seen the new one. The first one I saw, and I saw it when I was 10 years old. The whole family gathered around to watch it on television, and we loved Dr. Seuss and those movies. What I remember is my parents, just like you said, John, they were riveted to this movie, much more than we were as little kids. And I was not familiar with the story at the time. And so as it unfolded, I was really affected by my parents' reactions to the movie. And yeah, Reggie, it was the dog. That was the central character of the whole movie. My mother was a dog lover. That dog was the smartest character in the whole movie. It knew what was going on, and it was a survivor. So we all identified with the dog. It was a sweet story. I was convinced as a child that the Grinch was going to pull this thing off. I could not figure out how this was ever going to come out good for anybody but him. So it had a sweet ending, and it had a real impact on me. I remember as a young child thinking things turn out for the good. So, and that is my memory of the movie. I've seen it several times since. Saw it with my children when they were young. They were bored to death with it. But my original experience I carried.
Perfect. Thank you. Fay?
You're muted, Fay.
Okay, there I am. Well, I'm with Jimmy and Reggie. Max was my absolute favorite character in the story. And I always thought, how bad could the Grinch be if he loved that dog so much? So to me, Max was just the perfect part of it. Plus, I also loved how his heart grew, when he realized that didn't mean anything. The presents didn't mean anything.
Right. Nancy, I think you're next. You're muted. Rosa, go ahead. We'll come back to Nancy if she unmutes.
Okay. I muted it.
Oh, here she is. Here's
Okay.
Nancy. You go ahead. Nancy, it's your turn.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't have a favorite character so much as it was the Who's down in Whoville. And that was kind of a theme that he used throughout his work. And it's the power of the little people that I found so potent with regard to this, the Grinch.
I like that. I like that. Thank you. Rosa?
I'm probably the most trite of us all on this, but at the emotion wrapped up in his wonder at seeing the town clasping hands and singing, and they have nothing. They have no Christmas. And the amazement and I guess wonder that he emotes when he says, could there be something a little bit more to all this than what I've been seeing? And I think that is an extremely powerful moment that he gets it. He begins to get it. And then the end of it, I think the line about everything's okay as long as you have a hand to clasp, that there's more than one of us here to lean on one another. And that's what the Who's of Whoville had, that he had totally missed.
Agreed. Thank you. Kat and John?
Hey, so A couple of things. The first is, what with the Grinch, it was basically self-imposed, his isolation and his living where he was living, because once he came down, he was welcomed. So, it was sort of his self-imposed, but also just from, some of the words that like stuck out in my mind and because of the pandemic now, it's like against the Grinch until he was talking about they'll stand close together and they'll stand hand in hand and then they're going to sing all these songs. And it's like, no, you can't do that. It's a pandemic. So I had to side with the Grinch when it got to that part because, he was right there for right now when he had that approach.
Cam?
Well, I haven't seen it in such a long time, and I tried to watch the Cumberbatch, but I think it wasn't registering with me because I remember the music from the original one so much, and that is what I loved about it was the music. And like I don't know who said that it made him cry, but that music does make me cry every time I hear it because I do get caught up. But I just can't. I'm really enjoying everybody's perspectives because I really can't remember it so. Because I didn't get to watch it recently to have something important to say about it. But I do like that his heart grew.
Yeah, that's good. Dick and Dorothy, you're off camera, but I know you're there. Do you want to participate? All right, we can come back. Melissa and John?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's our favorite part, but at the end when he says, and the Grinch carved the roast beast. So not only do they forgive him, they give him the place of honor. They give him what apparently is the most honorable thing that happens. And so it's like the prodigal son story, right? They kill the fatted calf and he gets to participate in that way. So.
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning the prodigal son part because it doesn't seem fair. Everybody's worked so hard and prepared and done all this, and he gets to sit at the head of the table and carve the roast beast. That was one of my favorite lines too. Thanks for mentioning that. All right, Gene, is that you at the end?
You want to participate? I know I lost it, Melissa. I don't know what happened.
That is me.
Okay.
And I have to confess, I'm the only one of you who has never seen this movie.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's an opportunity for evangelism.
Don't worry, Gene. I've never seen the Christmas Chevy Chase movie either.
And I've seen that multiple times.
To watch them.
What is wrong with you, Radney?
I've seen the original Vacation, and that's it.
Okay. So why is something that is so child-centric? I mean, it's got its own language, its own rhyme. And one of the things that Will Hill gave me, it's called Susian Latin. He developed his own language. Why is it that something that is so child-centric, it's a cartoon, it's beautifully done, or I should say it's illustrated. It's an illustrated movie, and yet it's beautifully done. Why is that so powerful to us as adults still? I mean, what I hear is that many of us watching it still today have the same feelings or are moved by it. Why is that?
Don't you think it's because he picks up universal themes?
Okay.
He does that throughout all of his work. I mean, that's what keeps parents willing to read to children.
I think that it's because it touches that child within us, from a long time ago, that is still there and still is open and responsive and maybe can connect with emotions a little more easily. And so anytime, I mean, I love all of Dr. Seuss's things. I think they all have deeper messages. But I just think it appeals to the that more innocent child person inside us that can hear sometimes better, you know, than we adults when we get all covered up with all of our stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quoting a little bit of what Theodore Geisel said about his own work, but that in writing the story, he remembered something that he'd forgotten for a long time. And it's a very powerful thing to see somebody's life that is so thoroughly on a wrong track, just in a blinding flash, change for the good. And there's something really moving about that, particularly for people of faith. And so that to me is one of the things that makes particularly the 1966 animated version so powerful.
One of the things that made it powerful for me was looking at what caused him to become a Grinch and how we treat people at times. And I know it's a universal thing, but it's a very personal thing, is how do we ostracize somebody for being different? And do we follow up with them afterwards, or do we just keep them in that block, keep them on the mountain? And that was very real to me. But at the same time, the character, to me, he kept himself angry, but he knew he had the heart, and he never lost contact with that heart. And I had a little bit of trouble with the girl because she was so very good, you know, and so I kind of went with him more and felt sorry and put that on myself of how do I treat other people.
Well, I would say, you know, those animated cartoons in the 50s were all full of political and social commentary, and they dealt with it in a playful way, which was very safe. So you could watch the cartoon and pay no attention to the commentary that was going on and enjoy it. But if you were paying attention, you were hearing something very real. And it was fun and safe to do that. You know, today, nothing's playful anymore. You can't do that. But that was kind of the same genre of the Grinch movie. Seuss was great, but that method was consistent through that period of time. I love those old cartoons. I can watch them today. I can't get my children to watch, but.
Well, so I'm gonna give you this fascinating reflection by Poppy, just because I get to watch it. So Poppy has loved watching the Benedict Cumberbatch version. She hasn't seen the old one, but she just loves this one. And I'm not, you know, I don't know what she loves about it necessarily, but she just loves it. And so I thought, you know, I did something I never in my life thought about doing, and that was I went and bought a blow up online. I went to Amazon and bought a blow up Santa Claus that we could have in the front yard, and it's awful and it's tacky and it's gross and it's against everything I believe, but I got it because I thought she'd get a kick out of it. So I blow it up and I bring her out to unveil it to her, and she says, "It's the Santa Claus from Grinch." Because she didn't have any context of Santa Claus independently from having seen the Grinch, and she's 2.5, so it's not like she's got a wealth of experience of going and, you know, making lists and sitting in his lap, telling what she wants and all that kind of stuff. She doesn't know that. She just had been introduced to Santa Claus through the Grinch, and so for her, that's what it was. And I got to tell you, there is something really refreshing about that she and she's going to change. I'm not naive. We're months away from her coming up with a list and telling us everything she wants and what she needs and what she has to have. I mean, I get that, but it was really wonderful, that innocence, that it's just the Santa Claus from the Grinch. It wasn't attached to anything else. And it confirmed that maybe something from the Grinch sank in with her, because we have so much attached to Christmas that is like big blow up Santa Clauses, that is completely meaningless to the actual meaning and story of Christmas. And we have surrounded ourselves with all kinds of distractions and disruptions. I think sometimes to be like the Grinch, to avoid the kind of deep dive into what Christmas actually means. And I just wonder if that's not the way we avoid. This sounds, so it's a question. I wonder if we avoid kindness and compassion and welcome and inclusion and joy and hope, because it's hard work. And it's easier to be Grinchy about it and to get distracted with presents and garland and lights and blow up Santa Clauses and all this other stuff. Because that's pretty easy and to be that. I don't want to say that doesn't have meaning, but a lot of that is just kind of superficial. I mean, it is. It's decorations. By nature, decorations have a superficial quality to them. And the beauty of Cindy Lou Who is that she just doesn't care. And maybe maybe to Jimmy's point, that's the childlike innocence. And maybe that's what Poppy was trying to say with this, the Santa Claus from the Grinch is, before we corrupt, there's a time that we as parents are prevented from corrupting our children. It doesn't last very long, but there's a brief moment. And then we spend the rest of their childhood corrupting them, distracting them from the actual meaning of things. And then as adults, they have to figure it out and undo all that crap. And in some ways, the Grinch is representative of all of our lives in doing that. We have to unwrap all that extra stuff that we've learned over time so that the real meaning can be actually discovered. And for me, that's kind of the beauty and the power of the story, at least part of it. So everybody who's raised their kids to believe in Santa Claus is no.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I have a very serious question that's bothered me all my life. And if anybody on the panel wants to take a swing at this, what do you think the main ingredients are in Who hash? Because I love steak hash, I love corned beef hash, I love hash browns, but what is in Who hash? That's hysterical. I just always love that line. He even took the last can of Who hash.
You know what I think? I'm glad you asked that, because I can find a symbol and a theological meaning in anything. So thank you for asking that.
Bingo.
I think Who hash is the last bit of anything that comforts us, that soothes us, that makes us feel at home, that gives us a sense of place and belonging. All those hashes, right, are comfort food.
Yep.
And I think he takes the last morsel of that which is comforting from them. That's what I think it means. What's in it? Who hash, man?
John, I want to go back to a question.
You can probably go to Pinterest and figure that out, by the way.
I want to go back to the point you made just a minute ago about children when they transition into a period of time when we begin to corrupt them. I don't know how old my oldest son was, James, when I was driving him to school. I don't remember how old he was, but he turned to me and he says, "Dad, there's something I got to talk to you about. It's really bugging me. I got to know about this Santa Claus. Is he real or not? Because I'm hearing things at school." And I knew that I was about, he was about to lose that magic. And I wanted him to hold on to it for just a little bit longer. And so I thought about it, and I knew if I tried to explain it to him to keep Santa Claus real, he wouldn't believe me. So I said, "James, I'm going to tell you something, and this is the truth." I said, "You know the Easter Bunny?" He goes, "Yeah." "That ain't real." He goes, "I knew that wasn't real." I said, yeah, that one's not too hard to figure out. I said, "Don't tell anybody I told you that. But on the other hand, Santa Claus, he's real, and you need to be real careful with that." And he bit hard. And he goes, "I knew he was real. I knew it." And so we were good for another year.
Well played.
The best answer to all of that is, and what do you think? And they'll tell you exactly what they believe, and you can just let it go at that.
I picked Poppy and Sarah and Ann Townsend up from the school this afternoon, and I'd seen on Facebook earlier. I knew Santa Claus had visited their school, masked up, a masked Santa Claus, and Santa's elf was at the school. And I'd seen pictures of Poppy sitting there looking at Santa Claus. And so when she got in the truck and we were driving home, I said, "Did Santa Claus come to school today?" "Nope." "Are you sure?" "Nope." Did you sit in front of Santa Claus and Santa Claus tell you stories?" "Nope." I mean, I know there are pictures of this. I've seen it. So finally I said, "Did you sing songs to Santa Claus?" She said, "Yes," because she likes to sing. But it also was, she's just not ready to buy into it, I don't think, and figure it all out. But I like the idea that it takes a whole lot. I say I like it. This is my satirical commentary. I like how much effort it takes for a seasoned litigator like Jimmy McLemore to figure out how to preserve the mythology of Santa Claus in order to avoid the truth and to continue a fantasy, kind of this mythical character and all the traffic that come with that on Christmas for just another year. The gymnastics that we go through as adults to hold on to that is remarkable. And I always wonder, and I'm not trying to be a Grinch here. I'm just trying to think. I always wonder what would Christmas look like if we did away with all the kind of superficial stuff and we just gave people presents because we loved them and we cared about them, and we didn't worry about who they were from or wish lists or anything like that. What would it look like?
A lot more pleasant for everybody. It would be the culmination of Advent.
Yeah. And you have to know that I am forever scarred, much like the Grinch, Katie. Thank you for raising that. We did not have a lot of money growing up. And I have a twin brother and I have 4 other siblings. So we just didn't have big Christmases, which is fine. But I cannot tell you, some of you are not going to understand this. When the Sears catalog wish book came out,
Oh, yes.
they had, when I was a kid, they had all the NFL teams. You could get their uniform, their helmets.
Pajamas.
I cannot tell you how many times I wished for a Pittsburgh Steeler or Dallas Cowboy uniform and helmet and all that. And what I got was a hand-me-down 1950, plywood, cardboard set of shoulder pads that wouldn't protect anybody from anything instead. So it never really worked out for me to wish to Santa Claus for anything. So I got Scroogey early as a kid. But also, that's important for us to be mindful of. And that's, to Katie's point, is there are people for whom the whole proposition of a very egocentric and consumer-oriented Christmas has no meaning and context to them because they're not participants in the system. They don't have the luxury of wishing for things.
I think one of the other things though about Christmas today, Christmas starts, someday we're going to see Santa Claus sitting on a pumpkin before Halloween. But you go to I go back to the family. That was, my father had a lot of siblings. And Christmas was when everybody came to Granny. And gifts didn't matter a whole lot. We were just all together. And Santa Claus you know, you knew who Santa Claus was, but you had better sense than to acknowledge it. And that made Christmas. But to me, it always was a big family. And, you know, we've talked this time, Ann's parents are dead, my parents are dead, and we have our two sons and daughter-in-law. But, you know, when Christmas gets smaller, you think back to some of the times when Christmas was, you know, 16 first cousins and granny holding court. But I think that that's been one of the changes. And when kids can't go sit on Santa Claus' lap this year, I think of a 4 or 5 year old, it's going to change Christmas for them forever because of COVID.
Now I understand, and I think there's a whole lot of truth to that. It's a nice transition, Reggie. Thank you. It is in a funny way that's what Chevy Chase is trying to accomplish, right? Or Clark Griswold. What he's trying to capture about Christmas is the emphasis on family. He wants everybody to be together, and he wants it to be a grand celebration. He wants everybody but Cousin Eddie to be there, and it to be a grand and wonderful celebration. Because he states that it's family and everybody being gathered. That is what's important to him. It backfires, but that's one of the concerns. So I do think that is also what the Who's capture, and that is community is Christmas. That we gather not in a pandemic, side by side, and celebrate the gift of each other's life, is what Seuss is saying. For us, it's the gift of each other's life and the gift of life given to us by God in the person of Jesus. And when that can be a focus, I think it changes our perspective. I'll put it that way. And I'm not trying to be anti-Santa Claus and anti-gifts and all that. I just think we have to balance it. And as Christians, we have to be honest about what we're doing. And know that we're kind of exploiting a mythology sometimes at the expense of the underlying story. Because the underlying story takes a little bit of work, and the mythology doesn't take nearly as much. I don't know. I'm interested in get Kat and John's perspective on this. Something Reggie said. Yeah, this is being recorded, so this is going to come back and bite me, and probably one of my kids is going to play this recording in my face, and I'll be in trouble. But if we stop having kids sit on Santa's lap and make wishes, I would be okay with that. If that became a permanent change.
Well, you know, there's an organization called the Real Bearded Santa that are actual Santas that supposedly look like Santa or like our image of Santa. And they are asking to be the first people to get the vaccines so that the tradition of sitting on Santa's lap continues. Thought that was kind of a weird thing. That's kind of more important than a healthcare worker, but.
Right. First responders, healthcare workers, the elderly, and people who play Santa. Yeah, perfect. Right.
But people who play Santa go first. They want to be first.
Well, I mean, of course.
Well, there was somebody today, this is me, Helen, I don't know, I'm not on the screen, but there was somebody today that was talking about wanting to give them to all the professional sports people so that they can play sports and set the example. And I'm sitting here thinking that, You know, if those are the people who obviously in society are setting the example, and that was to encourage people to take the vaccine because they feel like a lot of people are not going to want to take it for various reasons. That just kind of blows my mind that we're looking up to the sports figures for our leadership into how we're going to behave and do. That just doesn't seem right to me, but.
Well, yeah. I got that's all I'm gonna say to that. Yeah. So with Christmas Vacation, let's talk about it for a second. What stands out to you about Christmas Vacation? I bet John Carter's got a good reflection on this.
I mean, it's our favorite.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a good reflection or not, but the part I love is when he's standing there talking to Cousin Eddie, and Cousin Eddie's talking about his kids. And, you know, Clark goes, "Oh, college? No, carnival."
Yeah.
Barking for the yak woman.
Yeah.
You know, be a pixie dust spreader on the tilt-a-whirl, right? And I'm like, that just encapsulates the whole thing.
That's a good line.
Well,
Yeah.
my part about the Griswolds were that as much as Clark was not excited about Eddie and his family being there, he still wanted the children to have a nice Christmas. And he was willing to, pay to have those kids have a pretty Christmas. And it's like the opposite of the Grinch, where the Grinch wanted to take all the presents away. Clark and Helen wanted to give. So I don't know. I liked Christmas Vacation.
Oh, I love Christmas Vacation. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to be proper and polite.
One of my favorite scenes in it is when he gets locked in the attic, and instead of ranting and raving, he finds the movie projector, and he gets to relive all of those memories. And I just think he's so earnest. He just so earnestly wants to experience family and all that, and it's not happening, but then in the end, it does. But I just loved it when I was just thinking how, you make the best of a bad situation, where he just relaxed and watched the movies. And that's one of my favorite scenes.
Agreed. Anybody else on that? Go ahead, Rosa.
I don't know if I was muted when I said this before, but I usually don't watch movies like this because too much of it is real sometimes, especially, how hard you've tried to make everything perfect, to make a perfect Christmas. And the harder you try, the more things blow up. And the line, it's Christmas and we're all in misery. I mean, I love it that they said that sign, but oh Lord, 2 children and working full time and having to go to Elliott City and visit with my in-laws and come back here to go to Christmas Eve service and get up Christmas morning and go to the farm to visit my parents all day. I mean, by the time it's all over with, your nerves are on end. And everybody's miserable. And then one other time, he always says we had fun, but the line, why are holidays such a mess? I mean, really, why should they be? But anyway, I generally don't watch this kind of movie for those reasons. But it does.
Here's one of the things that's a great thing. One of the things I wanted to mention about it and is why that's a quote that I like. Why are holidays a mess? I had a parishioner who she and her husband had both came from divorced families, so there were 2 sets of grandparents on each side, right? So 4 grandparents instead of 2 grandparents, and then some and then some siblings as well, who all were trying to vie for being the most important house during the holidays. But she and I met before Christmas one year, and she looked horrible. She just looked miserable. And she said, I need you to tell me something I can do to make Christmas enjoyable. And I said, what? And they had to do 5 Christmases. She believed they had to do 5 Christmases every year with 2 kids under 6 years old. They had Christmas at their house. Then they had Christmas at the 4 parents' houses, 4 different sets of parents. And by the end of the day, they hated life. And they did that every year since her girls were born. And she's like, what? You got to help me get out of it. And I think we put an awful lot of pressure on ourselves to make other people happy and mistake that their happiness for, dare I say, for tradition. And we give up our own ability to have joy and know joy, which is to say, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, all the obligations we try to fulfill are just as superficial as the garland we put on the banister. We don't have to put garland on the banister. We don't have to come up with a list. We don't have to do any of that stuff. We just do it. But we also don't have to make ourselves miserable because of the expectations of others in keeping this somehow mythological tradition about the way we do Christmas. We have autonomy, and that's not just at Christmas time, but all the time. And while it may be difficult to have that decision, it's no more difficult than having the decision telling them that the Easter Bunny is not real or that Santa Claus is not real. It's a decision to say to someone, I'm not going to drag my kids all over Kingdom Come and be miserable because you think I have to, or because you made me think I have to. And I just put that out there because it does become a mess, Rosa. I mean, it does. And why are we all miserable? That's the quote. Because we're making ourselves that way. We have a choice not to. So I know that's not popular, but I hope it's helpful in whatever way it can be.
I look at why this Advent and last Christmas were so pleasant from a family perspective. And it was, I think, because we really celebrated Christmas. And we didn't do all this running around anymore. The families have scattered and the parents are no longer with us. And everything has slowed down so much that we have a real Christmas and a real Advent. Instead of all this, let's make everybody happy and everybody have a perfect Christmas.
Right.
Well, I'll say this: when I was in 6th grade, our 6th grade teacher had us talk about this very subject we're talking about, and we were just beyond Santa Claus. And she talking about Santa, talking about Christmas. Was Christmas any fun anymore? And a lot of folks said, Christmas isn't any fun anymore. We don't believe in Santa Claus. We know it's all fake. Everybody's carrying out this role to make everybody happy. And I remember we got into the discussion, said, well, even though we know that Santa Claus is fake, these presents and this myth that gets played out is not real, what we knew as children was magical, and that was real. And we connected with each other as a family. And so how do we carry that out, even though we know that Santa Claus isn't going to show up in the middle of the night? And it seems to me that that's what everybody tries to recreate with everybody in the family every year, and the logistics get real complicated So the intentions are good. They're trying to get back to what they experienced that was real, but logistically, you just can't do it by trying to be a child again with so many people in the family. So it gets off the track. So it's got a good purpose and a good aim, but it just doesn't work. Going to church really is one of the best things because you can slow down and be quiet and worship. And if you're paying attention to it, you can, get the benefit of that. But that's why we always love going to church, because we could get away from the family and slow down and just be with us. And beautiful.
Dang, Jimmy, that's my tagline. Come to church to get away from your family.
Across the front of the Eagles.
That's right.
You don't know how many times I told my mother-in-law, we have to be at church.
Remember, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Going back to an earlier subject I had, I think we can stretch Christmas from October through December. And Christmas used to be a special day and a special week at least. And now, a long time ago, I said, I'm never going to a store that has a Christmas sale before Thanksgiving. And I just think that we have become a much more affluent civilization than this country was 50 years ago. And I think that part of it has lost the magic that Jimmy speaks of because, after a while, a magician only has so many acts. And when they start in October, by December, it's all over.
Well, here's what I've learned, Reggie. Don't try to buy Halloween things on Halloween because you will be walking around Christmas boxes.
Exactly, because Reggie used to lose all his spirit going to Moody Hardware on the 18th of December on a Saturday at 3 o'clock to replace lights and do all those things because we waited until the very end. And then one time, the tree fell over, fully decorated on the floor. And Reggie came in and looked at it and said, I'm going to bed, and turned around and left me. So, he would lose all his Christmas spirit over the tree and the lights. So I used to get the tree, we used to buy it on a stand because, the stand from last year you didn't replace. And then you can't jam the tree into the stand, and then you have to cut the bottom of it. And, so that's where Reggie's Christmas spirit went down the tube. So it was better when we did start early.
Reggie, you needed Little Mountain Growers.
No, I didn't. All you need to do is go to Southern Homes and Gardens, and they've got an artificial one that I can put in the closet and pull it out the next year.
With the lights on it.
Simplify. That's a good
winning.
That's right. So, I hope that at least it gives us some pause to not. Again, I do think there's something important about the magical part of kids' imagination, but just as your priest and as a little bit of a curmudgeon, just balance it. Have all the Santa Claus you want, but also have all the Advent wreath lighting that you want, and put out your nativity, and don't put Jesus in the middle of the nativity or the creche until Christmas, and have the kids look for Jesus. And do some stuff that has what we say in theology, an eternal meaning. That's not going to fade when they turn, 8 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, and they find out in school that something's not exactly the way they thought it was. Don't let Jesus and religion and what we are celebrating become a victim to the loss of their imagination around Santa Claus, if that makes sense.
I was thinking earlier, when I was growing up, we always had the manger under the tree. So that it wasn't like a lot of presents. They weren't there before Christmas. It was the manger, which always seemed appropriate.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. But also, you know, be a kid. Be a kid. We have to do the work of unwrapping all this garbage and be a kid and just enjoy it. And appreciate the meaning behind it. And so when Jimmy was talking about watching the movie when he was a kid, he sounded like he was 10 years old telling us the story. I mean, it's awesome. You could see that joy in him, and just him telling that story. And that's I hope that's what we experience, and I hope that's the fun part. All right. So next week is A Christmas Carol. And truth be told, of all these, it may be my favorite. I read it every year. Reginald Owen, that's the good one, the old black and white Reginald Owen one. All the others are, but that's okay. Watch any version you want. God only watches the Reginald Owen one, but it's hard to find because it was like 1939 or something. I don't know when it was made. It's old. But if you want to watch a different one, that's fine. That's between you and the Lord. Or read the book. It is.
John, you're new to Montgomery, but there's one thing that you have an opportunity this year. Greta Lambert, who is one of the great actresses at the Shakespeare Festival, is doing her own version of A Christmas Carol this year. It won't be done by stage, but that would be a wonderful learning experience. And you can go to the website and to see just exactly when she's doing it. But Greta is a marvelous actress, and doing a female version of the Christmas Carol, it's new. We've always had the male version.
Yeah, we're
Well,
watching.
that'd be interesting. I will look up that. I'll look that up. I have to tell you that this is a confession. I used to go Memphis would put on A Christmas Carol every year, and I'd go see it. And every year by intermission, I was just disgusted because they ruined it for me. It was really well done. I mean, it was very professional, but it wasn't my interpretation of A Christmas Carol, and so I struggled with it. Okay, so we'll talk about that next week. And any other movies, this is your chance. Any other movie that you want to discuss? A Christmas Story, The Bishop's Wife, Christmas in Connecticut, White Christmas.
Miracle on 34th Street.
Miracle on 34th Street. Reggie, come on, man, you're killing me after all this. You have a treat you pull out of the closet, man. You can't like that.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I've got something that's pretty near and dear to my heart, and talking about bringing tears to your eyes, is the 1973 Charlie Brown Christmas special. When Charlie Brown realizes that he can't direct a play and that his little Christmas tree is a flop, and he says, "Doesn't anybody know what the meaning of Christmas is?" And when Linus gives that monologue, that's Christmas. That's what Christmas is to all of us, and I think I'd love to discuss that.
Okay, Charlie Brown's Christmas. Hone up on that. If you want to watch Miracle with Reggie, y'all have a watch party. Any others?
You like Scrooge? The Bill Murray version.
None others? All right.
My favorite version of the Christmas Carol is the Muppet Christmas Carol. It's become one of our traditions. And I'm sorry that probably ruins it for you, but we love it because we love all the music.
Ham, I am a contradiction and a paradox. I'm with you on that. Muppets are okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, let me say a prayer as we sign off. And I had it's on my phone. Hold on one second. And this is the collect for this week from Advent. And it mentions an important word, joy. And so let's be mindful of that. Let us pray. Merciful God, who sent your messengers, the prophets, to preach repentance and prepare the way for our salvation, give us grace to heed their warnings and forsake our sins, that we may greet with joy the coming of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, McKinney. Thanks for coming in at the end.
Enjoyed it.
Sleepy.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.
You ready?